Here's a number the dealer never says out loud: $27,749. That's the sticker on a new 2025 Street Glide. It's also not what the bike costs you. Not close. 5 years from now, that same machine will have pulled more than $30,000 out of your life, and almost none of it shows up on an invoice you sign. So let's do what nobody at the counter does. Let's add up the whole bill, one category at a time, and find the single cost that's bigger than all the rest. Everything I'm about to give you, the figures, the ranges, and where each one comes from is written down in the Harley Doctor Handbook. The link's in the description, and there's a code on screen if you want it. Now the exam, let's look at the symptoms. You agreed to a price, $27,749. Then the paperwork came out. First, freight. Harley charges around $875 to ship the bike to the dealer, and that lands on you, not them. Then setup, sometimes called dealer prep or a documentation fee, which adds a few hundred more depending on the store. Then tax. On a bike this size, in most states, sales tax alone is $1,500 to $2,000. Add title and registration on top. Roll it all together, and the bike you thought cost 28 grand rolls out the door closer to $31,000. That's a jump of about $3,000, and you agreed to most of it in a back office, tired after you'd already fallen for the bike. That's exactly when a number is easiest to wave through. Here's the diagnosis, and it's the one honest thing I'll say in defense of that purchase price. Most of that money isn't gone. You own a motorcycle. You'll get a good chunk of it back the day you sell, and we'll settle exactly how much at the very end of this exam. But the tax, the freight, the setup fee, that money left, and it is not coming back. Not a dollar of it. Call it $3,500, and it's the first entry on our running total. $3,500, and you haven't turned the key. Here's my prescription. 2 parts. First, every one of those fees is negotiable or avoidable except the tax itself. Freight and setup are dealer line items, and a buyer willing to walk gets them trimmed. Second, and this is the whole theme of what's coming, buy the bike 2 or 3 years used, off a private seller, and there's no freight, no setup fee, and a much smaller tax bill because tax follows the lower price. The market data shows a lightly used Street Glide sells for thousands less than new. You skip this entire category. But on a new one, $3,500 on the total before mile 1. Category 2, your bike literally cannot warn you about because it has nothing to do with the bike. It's the loan. Let's look at the symptoms. Almost nobody pays cash for a $30,000 motorcycle. Harley's own financing arm advertises rates around 12% for a strong credit buyer on a long term. A credit union might get you down to 7, 8, or 9. So let's take the middle. Finance about $28,000 at 10% over 5 years, and your payment is roughly $590 a month. Now the diagnosis. Watch what that payment actually contains. Over 60 months, you don't hand the bank back $28,000. You hand back closer to $3,500. The difference, the part that buys you absolutely nothing, no chrome, no extra mile, no additional horsepower, is interest. On that middle example, about $7,500. At Harley's 12%, it's over $9,000. At a credit union 7, it's closer to $5,000. Whichever number is yours, it's one of the largest single costs of owning this bike, and it is pure air. You could set fire to it and own the exact same motorcycle. Here's my prescription, and it's just arithmetic. Every dollar you don't borrow is a dollar of interest you never pay. Put more down. Take the shorter term, even though the monthly payment stings. Because those 96-month loans Harley loves to advertise are exactly where interest goes to feed. And the used bike thesis pays off twice here. A used Street Glide costs less, so you finance a smaller number, so the interest shrinks against a smaller base. Pay cash for a used one, and this whole category is a zero. But on our new bike, finance the way most people finance it, add $7,500. Running total, $11,000, and you still haven't paid for insurance. Category 3 shows up every 12 months, so routinely that you stop noticing it. Insurance. Let's look at the symptoms. Here's where I owe you a range instead of a single number, because insurance is personal. It depends on your age, your record, your state, your deductible, and whether the bike sleeps in a garage or on the street. For our rider, someone between 45 and 70 with a clean record, full coverage on a Street Glide runs somewhere between $400 and $800 a year. And there's good news buried in that. Real good news. Touring bikes like this one are cheaper to insure than sport bikes, and this brand's demographic tends to price well with insurers. To put a face on it, a 55-year-old with a clean record garaging the bike overnight often pays well under $50 a month for full coverage. A younger rider in a busy city on the exact same motorcycle can pay 2 or 3 times that. Same machine, wildly different bill because the premium is really rating the rider far more than the bike. The diagnosis is just multiplication. Take the middle of that range, about $600 a year across 5 years, and you land at $3,000. In a low-cost state with a spotless record, closer to $2,000. In a high-theft city, or with a ticket or a claim on your record, it climbs past $6,000. So I'll put $3,000 on the total, and I'll tell you plainly it could be half that or double depending on your bike and your state. Here's my prescription. Insurance is the one bill on this whole list where 5 minutes of work pays for years. Shop it at every single renewal. Because carriers raise the customers who stay loyal and never call. Take the safety course. Most insurers knock money off for it. Bundle the bike with your auto or home policy, raise your deductible if you've got the savings to cover it, and a lower value used bike costs less to insure again, because the company is on the hook for less if it's stolen or totaled. Running total with $3,000 for insurance, $14,000. Let's pause for 30 seconds and make this yours. Think back over the last 12 months. Add up what you actually paid just to ride. Your insurance premium, anything you spent at the dealer or on parts, tires if you replaced them, fuel, any accessory you told yourself was small at the time. Hold that number in your head for a second. A lot of riders land 2 or 3 times higher than they'd have guessed out loud. That gap, the one between what you think you spend and what you actually spend, is the whole reason this video exists. Okay, back to the exam. Category 4 is where your bike does start talking to you and where the dealership makes a lot of its money. Routine maintenance. Let's look at the symptoms. Harley's service schedule is real, and it's specific. There's a break-in service around 1,000 miles, then a service every 5,000 miles after that. Each one is oil and filter, and on the bigger intervals, the primary and transmission fluids too, plus a long inspection checklist. A touring bike gets ridden 5,000, even 10,000 miles a year is normal for this kind of machine. So across 5 years, you're looking at somewhere between 5 and 10 of these services. The diagnosis depends entirely on who's holding the wrench. At the dealer, a routine service runs $250 to $450 each, with shop labor at $100 to $150 an hour. Stack 5 years of those up and dealer-serviced maintenance lands in the low thousands. Call it $3,000, and that's before a single surprise. One worn brake pad, one dead battery, and the number climbs from there. Now here's my prescription, and this is the heart of the whole video. That same oil and filter change, done on your own garage floor, costs $30 to $50 in parts. The full 3-fluid service, under $100. And the work is genuinely simple. Harley built these engines to be worked on. The spark plugs are 2 easy bolts. The drive belt needs nothing at all. Your bike's been trying to tell you this for years. It does not need a certified technician to change its oil. It needs you, a service manual, and one quiet afternoon. Do it yourself, and 5 years of maintenance drops from $3,000 to a few $100s in fluids. That's the single biggest saving on this entire list, and it's the one that's fully in your hands. Running total dealer serviced $17,000. Quick word, because we're halfway through the bill. If this is the kind of straight accounting you want more of, subscribe. Think of it as booking your next checkup. No hard sell, just the next set of numbers when it's ready. Now back to it. Category 5 is the parts that wear out no matter how gently you ride. Tires and the small stuff around them. Let's look at the symptoms. A touring Harley is heavy, and heavy bikes eat rear tires. The rear typically goes 9,000 to 13,000 miles. The front lasts about twice as long. A quality touring tire runs $150 to $300, and dealers charge $70 to $90 a tire just to mount it. So a set installed is somewhere between $300 and $650. The diagnosis over 5 years depends on your miles. Ride 25,000 of them, and you'll likely go through 2 rear tires and 1 front. Ride harder, more. Add a battery, which lasts a few years and runs $150 to $250 to replace. Add a set of brake pads somewhere in that window. Round the whole category, the tires and the consumables around them, to about $2,500 over 5 years. Not the scariest number on this list, but it's real, it's unavoidable, and it's the easiest thing in the world to forget when you're doing the math in the showroom. Here's my prescription. Buy your tires online, where they're often far cheaper than the dealer's counter, and pay a shop only to mount them, or learn to mount them yourself. Don't chase premium compounds you'll never use. A solid touring tire is exactly the right call for this bike. And the battery and the brake pads are both driveway jobs, an hour each with basic tools. Running total with $2,500 for tires and consumables, $18,500. Category 6 is the one you buy once and then keep buying. Gear. Let's look at the symptoms. A helmet, a jacket, gloves, boots, maybe rain gear. Buy decent equipment, the kind that actually protects you, and a full set runs anywhere from $400 on the low end to $2,000 at the top. Then time does its work. A helmet has a service life of about 5 years before the foam stops doing its job, so you'll replace it inside this very window. Gloves wear through. The jacket you loved pops a zipper. None of it is one big hit. It's a slow drip you barely register. The diagnosis across 5 years with the first purchase and the replacements together is roughly $1,000 to $2,000 for a rider who wears proper gear. I'll put $1,500 on the total, and I'd argue this is the one category you should never trim, because it's the only line on this whole list that protects the rider instead of the machine. Here's my prescription, and it's short. Buy your safety gear well once, look after it, and replace only the helmet on schedule and the rest as it genuinely fails. Watch the end-of-season sales because gear goes deeply discounted every fall. But budget for it honestly, because pretending gear is free is how people end up out on the road in a 10-year-old helmet. Running total with $1,500 for gear, $20,000. Which brings us to the last category, the one I saved for the end, because it's larger than any single number we've counted so far, and it's the one almost nobody ever writes down. Depreciation. Let's look at the symptoms, except this time there aren't any. That's the entire problem. Depreciation sends no bill and it trips no warning light. It's the most invisible cost you will ever pay, and the largest. Your bike's been telling you what it's worth every single day on the used market, and most owners never once look until the morning they decide to sell. So here's the diagnosis. And I'll give Harley real credit first, because the market data earns it. Harleys hold their value better than almost anything else on two wheels. A widely cited Kelley Blue Book analysis put brand-wide 5-year retention as high as 84%. But that's the optimistic whole brand number. On a specific high-volume bike like the Street Glide, the real listings tell a soberer story precisely because there are so many of them for sale at once. Kelley Blue Book and J.D. Power both put a clean, good condition, 5-year-old Street Glide in the mid-teens to around $20,000 today. You paid about $31,000 to roll yours out the door. 5 years and 20-odd thousand miles later, a private buyer hands you somewhere around $18,000 to $20,000 for it. Do that subtraction. You lost roughly $12,000 on the bike itself. That is more than 5 years of interest and insurance put together. It is the single biggest cost of owning this motorcycle, and it never appeared on one invoice, one statement, or one repair order. And on a loaded bike or a CVO, where the sticker starts in the 40s, that loss doesn't grow a little. It roughly doubles, past $25,000 gone. Here's my prescription, and it's the entire argument of this channel in one move. Let the first owner pay the depreciation, then buy the bike from him. A 2 or 3 year old Street Glide has already taken the steepest part of that fall. You buy in the mid-20s or lower. You skip the freight and the setup. Your tax is smaller, your loan is smaller, your insurance is smaller, and the depreciation still ahead of you is far gentler than the cliff a brand new bike goes over the second it leaves the lot. Run the same 7 categories on that used bike, and almost every line on this list shrinks at the same time. Lower price, a smaller tax bill, a smaller loan, cheaper insurance, and a much softer slide in value from there on out. So let's read the results back. One bike, 5 years, the fees that vanished the day you signed, $3,500. Financing interest, $7,500. Insurance, $3,000. Dealer maintenance, $3,000. Tires and consumables, $1,500. Gear, $1,500. And depreciation, $12,000. Add it all up. About $32,000 to own a bike that's stickered for under $28,000. That's the honest cost to own figure, the money that's actually gone once you sell and get your resale back. If you'd rather see the raw cash that flows out of your account across those 5 years, the whole purchase and every bill on top of it, before you sell and claw anything back, it runs closer to $50,000. Both numbers are real, and neither one is the sticker. The $50,000 is the cash that moves through your account across 5 years. The $32,000 is the part of it you never get back. Now look at what's actually sitting in that pile. The two biggest slices, depreciation and interest, have nothing to do with riding. They're the cost of buying new and borrowing to do it. And the two you control most, the maintenance and the fees, are the two a used and DIY buyer erases almost entirely. That's the whole argument. In the numbers, the riding is cheap, the buying is what costs you. I put every one of these figures, the sources behind them, the full ranges, and a worksheet to run the numbers on your own bike into the Harley Doctor Handbook. If you've ever suspected the dealer's math was working against you, that's the document that proves it, line by line. You'll find it at harleydoctor.shop. Get the used bike right, do your own wrenching, and the next 5 years cost you a fraction of what we just counted together. That's your checkup. Go ride.